At my sister's promotion party, I was pulled aside and handed a waitstaff apron. Just help out a bit, my mom said casually. You're not exactly busy with your career. My daughter looked at me like I'd betrayed her. My younger sister was being celebrated for her promotion at a high-end party my parents threw for her. While everyone toasted to her success, I was quietly pulled aside by my mother, handed a waitstaff apron, and told to help serve the guests, because I wasn't exactly busy these days. I did it. Out of shame, out of habit, I'm not sure. But when I saw the look on my daughter's face as I passed hors d'oeuvres to strangers at a party for a woman who'd always overshadowed me, something broke inside. Later, I stood up to my family in front of everyone, walked out with my daughter, and everything changed. We had just parked in front of the country club when Hazel spoke. Do I have to talk to anyone? She asked, not looking at me. No, I said, glancing over. Just stay near me. She nodded and pulled her phone from the pocket of her sundress. She wore sneakers with it. I didn't say anything. I had let her pack her own bag that morning. It was one of those mid-tier country clubs in Westchester County, not old money fancy, but expensive enough to make a statement. The kind with white tablecloths, floral arrangements, and waiters in pressed vests. A banner that read, "Congratulations Serena," hung across the back patio. We walked into the banquet room where everything was perfectly arranged, champagne stations, crudité platters, polished wine glasses catching the afternoon light. People in tailored blazers and heels turned to greet us with polite nods. My parents had clearly spared no expense. I hadn't seen Serena yet, but I heard her. Her laugh carried easily, that same bright, commanding tone she'd had since we were kids. She was holding court with a group of men in expensive shoes, gesturing animatedly with a glass of Prosecco in hand. I felt myself shrink instinctively. I was halfway through the room, scanning for my mother, when she appeared beside me with a flurry of motion. She kissed my cheek quickly and handed me something white. Here, just help out a bit, will you? We're short on hands, she said, pressing an apron into my arms. You're not exactly busy with your career these days. I blinked at her. What? It's not a big deal, she said. Just keep drinks moving. Smile. You're good with people. I stood there frozen. Hazel was beside me, silent. Mom, Hazel said, looking up at me. Are you going to do it? I looked around. No one seemed to notice or care. I could already feel the burn of embarrassment rising in my throat, but I told myself it would be easier this way. No scene. No argument. Just get through the evening. So I tied the apron around my waist. Hazel's eyes didn't leave my face. I started with the champagne tray. Walking slowly, making sure not to spill, nodding when guests said thank you or ignored me entirely. I passed Serena at least twice. She didn't acknowledge me. She was laughing with her boss and his wife, radiant in a sapphire blue jumpsuit that probably cost more than my entire week's grocery bill. Once, a man at the bar asked me how long I'd been working there. I laughed awkwardly and said, not long. He tipped me $5. I took it. Meanwhile, Hazel sat on the edge of a stone planter, watching. Her face was unreadable. She didn't look away when I glanced at her. She just stared. I made another round and passed my parents' table. They were seated front and center, naturally. My mother waved me over and whispered, "Can you get a bottle of water?" Sparkling, not flat. I nodded and walked back toward the kitchen, the humiliation thick in my chest now. I had started to sweat. I looked down at the apron, the name tag clipped to the front that said Melissa. It wasn't even my name. This is what I'd been reduced to. When I got back outside, Hazel wasn't where she'd been. Panic gripped me for a moment until I saw her just inside the banquet hall, near the coat check. She held a napkin in her hand. She passed it to me without a word. Can we go? The question was simple. But I felt the weight of everything I'd buried for the past 10 years in that little scrap of paper. The divorce. The job loss. The pitying glances from relatives. The constant comparisons to Serena. Every moment I'd swallowed my pride just to keep peace. And the look on Hazel's face, more resignation than anger. It shattered me. I turned, walked straight to the long banquet table at the front of the room where Serena was being toasted by her coworkers and college friends. My mother saw me coming. Her smile froze on her face. My father cleared his throat. I didn't wait. I took off the apron slowly, folded it, and placed it on the white tablecloth next to the centerpiece. "I'm not the help," I said. "I'm your daughter." The words rang louder than I expected. A few people looked up. Serena narrowed her eyes. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice sharp. "You humiliated me," I said quietly, looking directly at my mother. "In front of my daughter. Again." "Can we not do this right now?" she hissed. "This is Serena's day." "I'm aware," I said. "It's always Serena's day." I didn't wait for their responses. I turned, found Hazel, and together we walked out. No one followed us. In the car, Hazel didn't speak for a long time. I drove with my hands clenched tight on the wheel, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. Finally, Hazel said, "I was afraid you were going to pretend it didn't happen." I glanced at her. "Me too," I said. We didn't go straight home. I pulled into a diner off the highway somewhere in Tarrytown. We sat in a booth near the window. She ordered pancakes. I didn't have an appetite, but I ordered coffee to keep my hands busy. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. There was something about the silence that felt safe again. Different from the silence I'd known in that banquet hall. And in that diner, as Hazel cut her pancakes into tiny, precise triangles, I realized something. She had been watching me the entire time, not just tonight, but always. She was watching how I allowed myself to be treated. How I swallowed my pride. How I made myself small for people who never really saw me. And tonight, she watched me finally say enough. That mattered. It was already after dark when we got back on the road. Hazel fell asleep in the passenger seat, arms folded across her chest, hoodie pulled up over her head. I glanced at her every few minutes just to reassure myself she was there, safe, peaceful. And in that quiet car, somewhere between Westchester and home, I let myself cry for the first time in months. The next few days after the party passed in a kind of emotional hangover. Not quite sadness, but something slower, like grief moving through syrup. I didn't hear from anyone. Not my mother. Not Serena. Not even a "Are you okay?" from one of the cousins who'd witnessed me peel off that apron like a second skin. I wasn't surprised, just numb. Hazel was quieter than usual, but not withdrawn. I caught her watching me with a new kind of gaze, like she was trying to read something deeper in my face. She didn't ask about the party. But I knew it stayed with her the same way it haunted me. We went back to our routine. I picked up a couple of tutoring gigs, helping a high school junior write his college essay and an ESL student polish her grammar. They weren't glamorous jobs, but they were mine. I could feel pieces of myself starting to come back together, uneven and clumsy, but real. One evening, about a week after the party, I opened my email and saw the subject line, "Hope you're feeling better." It was from Serena. I hesitated, then clicked it open. "Hey. Not sure what that was about at the party. Kinda dramatic, don't you think? Anyway, Mom said you're still upset. I told her you'd cool off eventually. We all have our roles, right? Hope Hazel's okay." Serena, I stared at the words so long my eyes blurred. I didn't reply. That night, I lay awake for hours, thinking back to all the times I'd let her steamroll over me. All the birthdays she overshadowed, the job promotions she bragged about, the backhanded comments disguised as sisterly advice. The way my mother had always reinforced it, "Serena's just driven. You can't take it personally." But I had taken it personally. Every time. And now, Hazel has too. 2 days later, I got a call from my mom. I let it ring the first time. And the second. But on the third try, I picked up. Her voice was tight, controlled, like it always got when she was walking on the edge of what she thought was emotional. "I assume you saw Serena's email," she said, not waiting for hello. I did. I told her she would have worded it better. But you know what she meant. She meant I embarrassed her, I said. A pause. She meant it was a little over the top. I was serving drinks in a borrowed apron, Mom. At my own sister's party. Because you said I wasn't busy. She sighed, long and dramatic. It wasn't personal. It's always personal with you. She didn't argue. That scared me more than if she had. I don't want to fight, she said. But family is family, and I'd like things to go back to normal. Normal. That word felt like a warning now. Normal doesn't work for me anymore, I said. And it doesn't work for Hazel. That name stopped her. Well, she doesn't understand the whole situation, she understands more than you think. She was silent. For a moment I thought she'd hung up, but then she said, "You're angry." That's clear. But this is life, honey. Not everyone gets to be the star. I'm not asking to be the star. I just want to be seen. Treated like I matter. You matter. Of course you do. Then why did no one say anything when I was working at your daughter's promotion party like a server? Again, silence. That was the last time I talked to her that month. After that, things started to shift in small but noticeable ways. Hazel began spending more time in my office while I worked. She brought her sketchbook and curled up on the floor with a blanket. Sometimes we'd go the whole afternoon without saying anything, just existing in the same quiet space. She'd occasionally show me her drawings, people, mostly. Women in strong poses. A mother and daughter holding hands, walking away from a crowd. One weekend, we drove up to Cold Spring and wandered the antique shops. Hazel bought a vintage locket with a broken clasp. I found an old teacher's manual from the 1970s with margin notes from another educator, long gone. I felt strangely connected to her, whoever she was. Hazel said, "It's weird, isn't it? How can we just start over?" "Yeah," I said. Weird. And kind of wonderful. That night, I sat down at my laptop and started writing, not for tutoring, not for work, just for me. I wrote about teaching. About losing myself. About that moment with the apron. I didn't know what it was yet, an essay, a blog post, something larger, but it poured out of me like it had been waiting. And people started to read it. I submitted it to a site that published personal essays. They accepted it within a week. The editor wrote back, saying, "This was like a punch to the gut, in a good way." I read that line aloud to Hazel. She smiled in a way that told me she was proud, but didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I didn't realize how much I had needed that small validation until I had it. And then, out of nowhere, Hazel asked one night, "Do you think Grandma regrets it?" Regrets what? Making you feel small. Like you didn't matter. I exhaled. I don't know. I think she spent her whole life believing that love is something you earn by being useful. Hazel nodded slowly, thoughtful. That's sad. Yeah, I said. It is. She leaned her head against my arm. I'm glad you stopped being useful to them. I laughed, but it was half a sob. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. We stayed like that for a while, watching the ceiling, our shadows tangled in the lamplight. Something inside me had changed permanently, some axis shifted. And I could feel Hazel changing too, in the way she held her chin higher, in the questions she asked, in the way she looked at me now like I was someone worth admiring. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. Another few weeks went by before I heard from anyone else in the family. The silence didn't surprise me, it was their go-to strategy. When confrontation didn't yield submission, the next move was withdrawal. Pretend the problem didn't exist, and maybe the person causing discomfort would just quietly fold back into place. But I had no interest in folding back into anything. Hazel and I started creating new routines. Saturday mornings, we'd walk to the local farmer's market and split a cinnamon roll from the bakery stand. She started asking questions about my childhood, not Serena, not mom, but about me. What I liked back then, what I dreamed about, what I wanted before life started whittling me down. I told her I used to write stories, sometimes about strange girls who lived in forests and talked to animals. I used to fill up notebooks with them until my mom told me I should focus on real things, like SAT prep or finding a summer internship. You should start writing again, she said, licking icing off her thumb. Like, for fun. That suggestion did something to me. I hadn't thought of writing as fun in years. But I started. Just an hour in the mornings after she left for school. Nothing major, little fragments, scenes, ideas. Stories that felt like mine. Then one morning, while waiting for my tutoring student to show up at the library, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Hi. This is Cynthia. Serena's boss's wife. I sat up straighter. Oh. Hello. I got your number from one of the contact lists in the event folder, she said quickly, like she knew it was a stretch. I hope that's okay. It's fine. What's this about? She cleared her throat. Look, I wasn't sure if I should call, but I've been thinking about that party. And, well, what happened? I said nothing. Just wait. I didn't realize, you weren't staff, were you? No, I thought. She stopped. I mean, you looked so natural. I assumed you were just helping out as part of the catering team. But after, when Serena mentioned you were her sister, I felt. I don't know. Gross. That makes two of us, I said before I could stop myself. She laughed a little. Sorry. I guess I just wanted to say I think what you did, standing up to them, it was brave. And kind of heartbreaking. And I'm sorry I didn't say anything at the moment. I felt the lump in my throat rise again. Thanks, I managed. That means more than you think. We didn't talk long. She just said she'd been thinking about it, and it didn't sit right. She wanted me to know if someone noticed. Someone saw. After I hung up, I sat in my car for a few minutes and cried. It wasn't just about the party. It was years of being unseen, of being tolerated, of being the contrast to Serena's brilliance instead of someone valuable in her own right. It was someone, finally, someone outside that family bubble, saying I was right to feel humiliated. And right to leave. Later that week, I got a text from my dad. Lunch sometime? No context. No follow-up. I didn't answer right away. I sat with it for 3 days before replying. Okay. Your pick. We met at a Greek place near his office in White Plains. It was one of those nondescript restaurants that felt frozen in the early 2000s, laminated menus, fake ivy on the windows, a photo of the Parthenon over the bar. He was already there when I walked in, fiddling with the sugar packets like he always did. He stood when he saw me and gave me a hug that felt stiff, uncertain. We ordered quickly. He got the gyro platter. I got lentil soup. He didn't talk much at first, just picked at his food and made small talk, weather, traffic, how Hazel must be getting tall. Then he put his fork down and said, I didn't like what happened at the party. That was it. Flat. No emotion. I waited. I knew what your mother was doing, and I didn't stop her. I should have. But I didn't. I nodded, slow and careful. Why not? He rubbed his jaw. Because it was easier to let her run things. Because I'm not good at conflict. And because, deep down, I think I wanted Serena to have her moment. She always has her moment. I know, he said, eyes downcast. The silence stretched between us. You were never less than her, he said finally. We just didn't know how to handle you after the divorce. After the job stuff. It was like everyone assumed you'd just manage. That's the problem, I said. You saw me struggling and assumed I was fine because I wasn't loud about it. He looked like he wanted to argue. Then he nodded. I'm sorry, he said. Really? I didn't mean to make you feel invisible. I could tell it was hard for him to say. He wasn't the apologizing type. Neither was my mother. But this felt like the closest I would get to an acknowledgement. We talked a bit longer. He asked about the writing, and Mom mentioned something about an essay. I told him it had been published online and had gotten more views than I expected. I'd like to read it, he said. I didn't commit to sending it. Just said I'd think about it. When I got home, Hazel was sitting on the floor of the living room, back against the couch, working on something in her sketchbook. How was it? She asked, eyes still focused on the page. Weird, I said. But not bad. She didn't press for more. Just nodded and went back to her drawing. I watched her for a moment before walking into the kitchen to start dinner. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was faking stability. I wasn't pretending things were okay for her benefit. I was building something real. It wasn't clean. It wasn't easy. But it was ours. And that was enough for now. The next shift came slowly, almost imperceptibly. A comment here. A silence there. The occasional awkward text from my mother, clearly testing the waters. She never apologized. She danced around the party like it hadn't happened, like I hadn't peeled off that apron in front of 100 people and dismantled her picture-perfect illusion of family with a few sharp words and a stiff spine. Her messages were thinly veiled attempts to reset things. She sent links to job openings, just in case you want to get back out there, videos of Serena on local news panels, and once, a photo of her garden with a note that said, "We should have a tea here soon. Girls only." I didn't respond. Serena never reached out again. Her silence was her choice, and frankly, a relief. But what my family failed to notice, or perhaps refused to see, was how quickly my life had started blooming in their absence. The essay I had written got picked up by a much larger platform after someone shared it. It reached over 100,000 views in 2 weeks. I started receiving emails, mostly from women, some men, who said they saw themselves in my words. One message stood out: I'd been serving emotional drinks in a family that never saw me, either. Thank you for showing me how to set the tray down. I printed that one out and taped it to the wall above my desk. Soon after, I was invited to speak at a small writers' conference in the city. Just a 20-minute spot on a panel about personal storytelling. I was terrified. But I said yes. Hazel came with me that day. She sat in the front row in her denim jacket and drew in her sketchbook while I talked. When I finished, she looked up, grinned, and clapped like I was the keynote. No one else in that room could touch that kind of validation. The following month, I was offered a part-time job editing personal essays for an online magazine. Flexible hours. Remote. Modest pay, but steady, and in a field I actually enjoyed. I took it. Hazel and I celebrated with pizza and a movie on the floor of our apartment, toasting with ginger ale and a shared carton of mint chip ice cream. It was the most joyful I'd felt in years. Then, out of nowhere, Serena emailed me again. This time, the tone was different. Hi. I heard about your essay making the rounds. A few people at the office have mentioned it. Interesting perspective. I'm just wondering if you're going to write anything else about the family? Just want to make sure things don't get twisted. No congratulations. No curiosity. Just damage control. I didn't respond. Instead, I took Hazel out for a mother-daughter day in the city. We visited the Met, had lunch at a vegan place she liked, and walked through Central Park until our feet hurt. That night, over leftovers, I told her about Serena's email. She frowned. What are you going to do? I don't know, I said. I'm not writing about them, not directly. But if my story makes them uncomfortable, maybe they need to sit with that. She nodded thoughtfully. That's kind of like revenge, right? Maybe, I said, smiling. The best kind. Then came the unexpected invitation. A wedding. Serena's. Not just a formal invite in the mail, but a hand-delivered letter from my mother, left in our mailbox with a note that said, "Please come. Let's try again. The past is the past. This time, you're a guest." Hazel opened it first. She read the note, then turned to me and said, "She's testing you." I stared at the embossed card with Serena and her fiancé's names in gold script. The whole thing screamed curated perfection. I didn't want to go. But then, an idea started to form. Not out of spite. Not to cause a scene. But something deeper, more pointed. A way to stand on my own feet, in their world, without giving them the satisfaction of pushing me down again. So I said yes. I found a dress I loved, a deep wine-colored wrap that made me feel grounded. I booked a haircut. Hazel helped me pick out shoes. We went together, hand in hand, and I could feel the nerves fluttering under my skin, but I kept walking. The venue was a vineyard in the Hudson Valley, expensive, picturesque, very Serena. When we arrived, everything was perfect. String lights, manicured hedges, champagne flutes clinking against soft jazz. My mother spotted me and waved cautiously. She didn't look angry, just uncertain. Maybe she thought I was here to make a scene. I wasn't. We mingled. We smiled. Hazel looked radiant in her silver dress and black boots. Several guests, mostly people from Serena's office, approached me. "I think I read your piece," one woman said. "It was incredible." "You're the sister?" another asked, looking delighted. Wow. That story really hit home. My mother overheard one of these exchanges. Her face froze in that particular way she does when she's trying to calculate whether something is a warning or a compliment. Then, the best moment of the evening arrived without warning. Just before the dinner was served, the DJ announced a short video presentation prepared by the bride's family. A slick, professional montage of Serena's accomplishments played on a giant screen, her childhood awards, graduation speeches, pictures at conferences. Polished, glowing, exactly how she wanted to be seen. And then, unplanned, unexpected, a guest shouted over the clapping, "Is that the writer? Her sister?" All heads turned. Suddenly people were looking at me, not through me. I was part of the conversation. Not Serena's sad counterpart. Not the other daughter. Just me. My mother blinked rapidly. Serena's eyes narrowed like she'd smelled something sour. I smiled, leaned into Hazel, and whispered, "Time to go." We slipped out before dessert. No confrontation. No drama. Just a quiet, elegant exit. And that was the final act. Revenge doesn't always have to be fire and fury. Sometimes it's just showing up whole, being seen, and letting your existence say the rest. It's building a life so stable, so authentic, that their power shrinks on contact. I don't need Serena's approval anymore. I don't need my mother's pride. And I don't need to wear any more aprons. I just need this, Hazel beside me, my name in print, and the quiet knowledge that I finally wrote myself a life worth living.